No, it's just, my gosh.
Oh
Mm,
boy, I girl, now that hurt me. I said, oh,
yeah.
I got DMX, Shock G. What?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
A friend of mine is I've met some of these people, which is like,
Yeah,
and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. The first
right.
time we met Tupac was 13. He was
Oh
performing.
my
Oh
goodness.
yeah, he was performing at a Jesse Jackson for President rally. Oh
Mm,
yes, at the Apollo.
wow.
At the Apollo. So that is where we met Tupac. So I was like, wait a minute, didn't we meet him? That
Right.
was like at the Apollo when he was a child, because his mother was a Panther, so he grew up in a very politically
Yes,
conscious,
yes,
home.
yes.
And girl, I said, what? He has gotten. And then he became the biggest thing ever.
Ever. I love Tupac.
Oh,
I
oh,
enjoyed his music.
girl, honey, we all
He's
love
in,
Tupac.
he's in my top five.
Oh my goodness, love Tupac and loved them. I love the Digital Underground. They were so much fun. I mean, I
I
was like
know.
Humpty Hump. I gotta find that today so I can play that on my headphones.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
I
I
went.
remember when that dance came out. Oh yeah, I was in high school.
Girl, one of the few that I could do. Mm.
I love it. I
Okay,
love it.
rhythmically challenged. That is us.
Yeah.
Okay, we got that from Dad. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you very much. Thank you. You like, oh no. My mother said, oh no, we gotta help
Oh,
you. She said, I gotta help you because your father, now that's where he hurt you, but not me because I got
oh
rhythm.
boy.
Oh, I'm good. Trust and believe. Santita is good. Huh?
Oh,
Yes.
good.
Santita is good. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. So let,
believe
so let me say hello to everybody here.
it.
Sending y'all much love. I'm sitting
Hello.
here talking junk with the pastor, Pastor Tisha Williams. Yes. We are so happy to
Mhm.
have her here today, and we had a wonderful time last night. How can people hear um, this series that you've done?
So they can actually go on and register for the webinar series.
Okay.
We're about halfway through, but if they register, I'll make sure they get the previous sessions so that they can catch up. And they can do that by going on Who's That Lady Men .com. So
Okay.
Who's That Lady, no apostrophe in the Who's That Lady Men, MIN.com, and look for the Empowerment webinar series. It's amazing. So we've done Get Your Shifts Together. Last night, Santita did a phenomenal job
Oh, she's very sweet.
as our guest speaker as we talked about why is your butt so big.
That's right. She did
And
prime
our
me
next,
for that, you guys. I got it.
not at all,
Not
but as
lost
a
on me.
DUT, your excuses. And
Okay.
then the next about leadership. So yeah.
Okay. Can you all hear me? How is my sound? My sound is going in and out. Let me know how my sound is right now, everybody. Okay, let me know, let me know, let me know. Let me know how the sound is. How is the sound? Okay.
All right, you've been consistent for a good 60 seconds on my end, on my
Okay.
Facebook, I should say.
Okay, great. Great. That's what I need. Okay. I have it logging into Facebook now. Okay, okay, okay.
Live in 60.
Okay, perfect. Great, great, great. Okay, you guys. All right. Looking forward to being with you today. All right. Let's get right to it, everybody. Have a great show. Praise the Lord. So glad to be with all of you today. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
10.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. That's right. We are victorious. I'm Santita Jackson. It's Friday, April 23rd, 2021. No, it's not Groundhog's Day. I had the date in. I had it wrong yesterday. Today is Friday, April 23rd, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT, 820 here in Chicago, and the voice of progressive Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, AM 950 radio, Matt McNeil. Want to send you much love. I had a wonderful time on the air with him. I'm part of the AM 950 radio family in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it was a joy to be with him and to have so many of you who are from Minneapolis, St. Paul chime in to say hi. Hey, y'all, this morning. You know what we're going to do? We're going to have Sergeant Sean Kennedy back on from NABLEO. That's the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers. And they're going to be he's going to talk to us, really walk us through what happens, what you should be doing if you have an encounter with the police in the streets or in your home, right? If you have a traffic stop, if you get that knock on the door, if someone bursts down your door. I mean, there's a whole lot in between. It's happening so much. And of course, we'll be talking about Ma'Khia Bryant and Dante Wright and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and on and on and on it goes, and including Michael Bell. I'm going to bring his father back on in a few days if I can get him. He's always been so wonderful in the past. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy who was killed in front of his mother and sister on his front lawn up in Wisconsin. The police officer put the gun to his head. You know, I've had him on before. And the gun misfired. Then he moved it out just a little bit farther, a little further out, and then blew the boy's brains out. He was 21 years of age. This is a power problem, everybody. Yeah, racism is part of it, but it's not all of it. And we got to talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. GWC Injury Lawyers gives you the opportunity to text me at that number. But I want you to meet the Morning Stars, Linear Bob out there in San Jose joining us, Michael, and out west, my girl, Carolyn Ruff and Bab Bolelli, who's left Chicago, but he's out in California, so we love you. Savannah, how you doing, sweetie? Shirley from Philadelphia. Did I say hello to you, Samantha, Yolanda, Adrian, Zenobia, and on, and Raphael down there in Brazil, Francis, Brian, Carol Crowley, and so many of you. Keith Fluid, my buddy up in New York. Please continue to like and share, like and share, like and share. And we're going to have the Black Health Trust. You need to know about them. You will be able to get some of the best information for your health. And these are some of the top doctors in the world who have free seminars and they answer your questions. We're going to talk with them at the bottom of the hour. And of course, Dr. Deborah Verholden and the anointed Pastor Tisha Williams. Had a wonderful time with her last night. Let's get a few of these headlines out of the way so we can hear a good word from her on the Santita Jackson Show. Hey, everybody. Chicago, we will have a high of 59 degrees, mostly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 55 degrees, scattered showers, everybody. The Dow closed down 321 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 131 points. The S&P 500 closed down 38 points. Well, we're kind of getting a bit of a break. Although yesterday, the Cubs, 4-3 over the Mets. Yay, they will be playing the Brewers today later on. And the Sox will be facing off against the Rangers later. And tomorrow, the Twins will be playing the Pirates. Wow, Dante Wright was mourned at his Minneapolis funeral yesterday. Reverend Al Sharpton delivered news. We saw Senator Amy Klobuchar, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and so many people who came out to pay tribute to this young black man shot dead by the police. At least Kimberly Potter, the police officer, said it was an accident. But many people are going to ask the question, did that really happen? Did you really not know the difference between a taser and a handgun? The killing of Wright 2 weeks ago by this police officer has sent the city reeling. And so we're going to see how this goes because we'll see if there will be a charge. All right? Our lives worth more. That is what you heard after that sad event. And then we have a 42-year-old man from the state of North Carolina shot to death on Wednesday by a deputy sheriff trying to serve a a search warrant. Wow. The shooting prompted protests and demands for accountability in this month out of North Carolina city of 18,000. The deputy has yet to be identified. Wow, what is happening in India? They are having a wave of coronavirus, the likes of which we have not seen. India's health ministry on Thursday reported a global pandemic record of, get this everybody, 314,835 new cases over a 24-hour period. Gotta keep our eyes on India. Indeed, an alternate juror in the Chauvin trial said the testimony that really got to her was that of Darnella Frazier. She said watching this young lady, this girl really, feel guilt just broke her heart. Wow. The coronavirus. Wow. We are now waiting to see what's going to happen with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Will this U.S. panel decide to put it back in the marketplace, even as we have seen more issues with blood clots? A little bit more than 7 per 6 million, everybody, or 6, whatever number it is they're putting out there. There's a lot more to it. In the meantime, we're finding that different vaccines are working all around the country. The one dose of Pfizer or the Oxford jab reduces the co-infection, according to a study, by 65%. And Pfizer is now says it has identified an extra instances, everybody, of counterfeit vaccines. Can you believe it? Who thought of that? Anti-Asian hate crime bill passes the Senate with bipartisan support. Good on them. And the LGBTQ plus community is applauding a decision by HUD Secretary Marsha Fudge, who withdrew a proposed Trump administration rule that would have allowed federally funded single-sex shelters to deny unhoused transgender people refuge in facilities matching their gender identities, everybody. The voting rights advocates have demanded that the Senate pass the D.C. statement bill after it passed in the House. What do you think is going to happen, everybody? Well, let's get right to it, everybody. Let's get to some good news from this great woman of God, this anointed Pastor Tisha Williams, First Baptist Church pastor from Bridgehampton, New York. Very quickly, last night we had a wonderful time. You have a series. Please tell us about it briefly.
Yes, the series is called the Who's That Lady Empowerment Series, and it's a quarterly webinar series. Last night, we had the second installment of this series with you as our special guest, and we talked about why is your butt so big, how to eliminate excuses and move forward in your goals. And it was fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us last night.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now tell me, give me some good news. We need that today.
We really, really do. So today, I want to channel a little Frankie Beverly today and talk about Before I Let Go. So I recently read this little blurb, and it says, when it comes to a backyard barbecue, everybody in the place, including babies, will know how to do some form of line dance. It's an absolute, and nobody wants to miss that part of the festivities. And Frankie Beverly amazes Before I Let Go comes on. When that happens, people will stop whatever they're doing and join in on the dance routine. If they're just arriving, they'll hurry up and put the rolls they brought back down and get the stepping. If they're leaving, they'll backtrack and get that last dance. And I thought this article was so perfect because it highlights before I let go. You always have that one person who needs that one last dance before they let go. And that's precisely how we handle many of life's problems, setbacks, and circumstances. Instead of letting go, we'll often backtrack to get the last word in, the last cry in, or even the last laugh in before we let go. And I want to ask, are you guys having trouble letting go of something today? You run it by people, you go over it in your head repeatedly, you process and worry and try as hard as you might. You just can't let it go. You know, we're great at touting the phrase, let go and let God. We use that cliche, and yet we do the exact opposite. In most cases, God is our last resort. We do everything else and explore every other option before we let go and let God take over. And here we find, Santita, there may have been some copyright infringement on Beverly's part, because long before he submitted David penned his in the 55th Psalm. Like Beverly, David is battling with the pain of a relationship gone south with his son. And we can feel David's fear and anxiety over the situation as he wrestles with his thoughts and feelings of confusion. And while he's beseeching God, we can't ignore all that David talked out, worked out, and hashed out before he finally let go. And it demonstrates for all of us the painstaking steps we go through before we let go. David says, my thoughts are troubling me, and I'm distraught. Have you ever had a troubling thought? What is a troubling thought? Troubling thoughts are the thoughts you can't let go of. Troubling thoughts. I hope I can pay all the bills this month. I wish I knew why we ended things. What if the test result is negative? Troubling thoughts. It's the thoughts that keep you up at night and prevent sweet sleep. The thoughts that plague you as you sit at a red light. The thoughts that wake you first thing in the morning. The thoughts that make you search your cabinet for something a little stronger than juice. That's what David was talking about, troubling thoughts. David had allowed the enemy to infiltrate his thoughts. And it's interesting because in the first verse he says, listen to my prayer, O God. Do not ignore my plea. On one hand, David trusts God, but on the other hand, he believes the report of the enemy. Joyce Meyer would call this the battlefield of the mind, and it works this way. There are two keys of the brain that are at odds with each other, the amygdala and the frontal cortex. Don't let me lose you. Follow me, guys. The amygdala part of the brain, this is the emotional survival instinct and memory area, whereas the frontal cortex is the logic area. It controls the higher order brain functions such as awareness, concentration, and decision making. So here's the thing. Let's say you hear a noise in the middle of the night. Your prefrontal cortex would say, everything is okay. You lock the door. The alarm is activated. Go back to sleep. Whereas the amygdala, on the other hand, says, everybody wake up, we're all going to die. It's an intricate dance between emotion and rational logic, thus creating a battle of the mind. So you may feel like you're going crazy today. You're not. There's just a battlefield. There's a little dance going on in your mind. This is when your mind loses control and your thoughts take over, more powerful or deadly than any enemy you will ever face. The worries are like warriors marching in your mind. Your burdens are like a battalion bearing down on your brain. The heaviness is a horde having its way in your head. And before you know it, you're like David, troubled with thoughts infiltrated by the enemy. But here's the good news. Paul says this, that we demolish every fortress, every stronghold, argument, and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We must take hold of the thoughts that have a hold on us. Don't you know today you can make those thoughts your POWs, your prisoners of war. Martin Luther said it this way, you can't keep birds from flying over your head, but you can keep them from building a nest in your hair. I recently watched women's soccer clips, and I noticed that whenever a player misses their shot, their first reaction is to grab their head. And this gesture conveys embarrassment and confusion. They just can't understand how they missed the goal or how they missed the shot. But in this one game I watched, one player made an extraordinary shot, not with her feet, but with her head. The ball was flying across the field, and she leapt up, hit the ball with her head, and scored the one and only goal for her team. She took captive what the enemy threw at her, not with her hands, but with her head. What are you saying, Tish? I'm saying you can either hold your head or you can use your head. The enemy wants you to hold your head in confusion, but God wants you to hold your head and use your head to win the prize. Your head does not belong in your hands. It belongs in God's hands. In other words, you don't fight the battle of the mind. God does. Here's the thing. God created you so that you cannot think two thoughts at the same time. You may go back and forth, but you cannot think them simultaneously. And you can't talk to God and listen to the enemy at the same time. So choose today to let go and let God handle your thoughts. Let the mind of the master be the master of your mind. And that's the good news.
That is the good news. Let the mind of the master be the master of your mind. Love it. That's why she gives us the good news every week. Love you, Pastor Tisha Williams. Can't wait for you to be in
I
Chicago in a
love
couple
you.
of weeks. Yay.
I can't wait.
Yes. It's going to be great. Well, we have your sister, beloved, Dr. Deborah Holden, who's always trying to creep on
Yeah.
early on Friday so she can hear the good word from you. We loved you, Dr. Deborah Holden, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University. They brought her in. from Johns Hopkins so that she could help them to build their School of Public Health. What an honor it is to have you with us every day. The Johnson & Johnson jab, well, it might come back in the marketplace, and we're seeing this explosion of COVID-19 in India. Where do you want to begin today?
I've been looking at our brothers and sisters in India, and I think there's a good lesson that we can learn from them. And a lot of us, unfortunately, have not had the luxury of traveling outside the country. I haven't been to India specifically, but I've been to countries like India. And I think what we'll notice if we look at some of these places, if you look at what it looks like to go to the market in a place like India, or if you look at what it looks like to be out in kind of like the center square in a place like India, I think it helps you to make sense of what's happening there and what that means for us. Because everybody's in such a hurry and such a rush to get back to business as usual. And people keep talking about the new normal. And I don't even think anybody has any clue what that is going to look like. But as people think about that, when you have people at high concentrations packed into spaces, you will increase spread. And we are now dealing with variant forms of the virus, which spread more easily and looks like they cause more sickness and more death.
Even with the vaccine?
Even with the vaccine.
Okay.
Even with the vaccine. Remember, the vaccine, the 95% number that we hear for the vaccine is preventing illness from COVID. It doesn't mean, and you can breathe COVID in and you can breathe COVID back out and be vaccinated, right? You know, when you get your flu vaccine, many of us will get the intranasal vaccine.
Yes.
That actually sanitizes your airway because that's where the virus comes in and goes out. Well, we're getting injected in the arm. So best believe you can absolutely, even if you yourself don't contract COVID, you can breathe it in and breathe it back out on somebody. And you yourself not get sick, but breathe it in and breathe it out on somebody. So yeah, you still need your mask. This is why the CDC recommendation, if you're around all vaccinated people, you can be unmasked. But that's only if those people have been honoring the protocols. If people have been honoring the protocols out in the world, if you're around fully vaccinated people, they say you can be unmasked. And they still say also in that outdoors is best. But yes, you can absolutely breathe it in and breathe it back out on somebody within an hour. You can breathe it in and breathe it out. Have you ever been out and come home and felt the need to just blow your nose or kind of gargle your mouth out or things like that?
Yes.
When you've got that mask on, and I just think it's awful. I feel like I'm just breathing recycled, rotten breath. And I've had a few flights and other things. I find that I have this insatiable need to just blow my nose and like gargle my mouth. Most people don't honor that. We don't honor that. When your body is sneezing, a lot of times it's trying to exhale something or get something out. A lot of people don't honor that. So, yeah, even if you're vaccinated, you can still breathe COVID in and breathe it out on another person, which is why it's so important to honor the protocols. This is what the protection, however, that the vaccine would provide, is it would create a nice little pod for you of people where you could let your guard down. But that pod is not out in the world because we're not even close to having the percentage of people vaccinated that we need for people to feel comfortable being out right now unmasked. We're several months away from that.
See, the reason I continue to ask these questions is because, I came across a Washington Post article just yesterday, and the headline is, "Should I wear mask outside?" And different experts were weighing in. And the short answer, the writer writes, Allison Chu, the short answer is that masking outdoors can be optional. That's Paul Sachs, clinical director of the Division of Infectious Diseases at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, which is the Harvard Hospital. And then Crystal Pollitt, assistant professor of epidemiology at the Yale School of Public Health, your space. There's not necessarily a straightforward rule. See, I think that's why we continue to go over the basics every day, Dr. Deborah Holden. I know you feel like a broken record, but you're not. Because you see, it was kind of like, people are still trying to figure it out. I'm not blaming anyone for anything. Because, in science, you're a skeptic, you're investigating, you have hypotheses, you're testing theories constantly. What should we do? Should you mask? I mean, a lot of people now, as it's getting warmer, they want to go outdoors and exercise or at least take a walk. Should they wear a mask? In your opinion, yes or no?
It depends on what you're doing outside.
Okay.
If I were outside and I were going on a jog, I would not have a mask on. And I have a tendency of, and I've learned from Dr. Shanina Knighton, if I'm going to have my mask on and have it down and not up, I only do that if I'm starting off that way. So if I go outside and exercise, I might have my mask on, but it's down below my chin, and I would only pull it up if a neighbor or a colleague stopped and wanted to interact with me or something like that. Otherwise, no, I would not. If I were going to an outdoor gathering, it would depend on how densely packed and populated that event was if I would have my mask up or not. So it really does vary. Outdoors is best. And if you're going to like a family event or a family cookout or family barbecue, this is the time for people to know your status. You actually need to know people's status. Have you been vaccinated? Have you recovered from COVID? Do you have antibodies? Have you been honoring the protocols outside of here? These are the types of things that will help guide your decisions on what you do at the family barbecue or other events like that. And so I think there is no one magical answer. But it is an opportunity for people to start to get the kind of information they need to make choices that work for them and to be able to have some more joy and normalcy in their life. But it's all about the scenario. So, yeah.
No, Dr. Deborah Holden, that's it. And I want to thank you for that. And now we're moving into your space. We'll be talking about the Black Health Trust. They have a fantastic program. They talk about intimate violence, intimate partner violence, COVID-19, the whole range of personal health issues, institutional, retail issues. You can find out from these the best doctors in the world. And we're talking to Dr. Ivan Walker and Dr. Ronald Madsen. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. And so go on there and talk to the New York Times. Shock G, everybody, of the digital underground. Mr. Humpty Hump made his transition yesterday. Yes, my heart is broken.
Oh.
Girl, Shock G, yes. Yes. Shock G. And that's where we first saw Tupac. In the digital underground.
Yep.
The Humpty Hump. Yeah, he was the guy with the big hat. He looked like he was a silly guy, but he was actually the producer. And Tupac's early works he produced, he has a magnificent body of work. He was found dead in his hotel room, 57 years of age. But boy, oh boy, I want to thank you, Shock G, for all of the wonderful music and good times you gave to me. I just thank God for him. But oh my gosh, I was just Greg Jacobs. That was his given name, but we all knew him as Shock G. Girl, my heart just is heavy this morning. Ooh. Shock G.
Yeah.
Girl, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, the young folks getting out of here. At least we used to be young. But, oh my gosh. But you know what? You can say hello to the doctors before you go. And
I got Dr. Ivan Walks. Dr. Maxley keeps going straight to voicemail. I'll keep calling. You know when I get him.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Thank you so much, Dr. Walks.
Good morning.
How are you? We've got Dr. Deborah Holden. She's going to be running away from us in a hot second today.
Oh, no. We love Dr. Deb.
We love Dr. Deb.
Good morning, Dr. Walks.
She's leaving.
Good morning.
She's leaving. I thought she was going to stay with us for a while, but she's leaving. She said, oh, no, I have something. I've got an interview with the New York Times. I said, okay, well, all right. Never mind.
All righty.
I said, okay, never mind.
Well,
but we're still going to talk about the Black
We
Health
know
Trust.
she's big time. It's okay.
So are you. That's all right. Look, I'm with the big cheese. I'm the one who carried the beaker at Howard. That's all I did.
It's all right.
Oh, my gosh. And ruined so many skirts until I got wise. I didn't wear pants in college, and I got some really some wonderful denim skirts because I was like the polo girl. Okay, I was the ultimate prep, but it was like messing up my skirts. And Dr. Furholton and Dr. Walks, I used to sew my skirts. I used to make them myself, so I was really hurt. Yes, my mother made me go to singer sewing school. Yes, so I know how to sew everybody. Yes, I made curtains and all of that. All of that.
All right.
That's right. So, but even if we can't, Doctor, we're going to continue to reach out to Dr. Maxey, but I do want you to talk about this Black Health Trust because I have to tell you, I went and saw some of the old, some of your archived pieces, and they are fantastic. I mean, really, you all do great work. Great work. So thank you for that. Dr. Deb?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you going to stay with us or are you gonna jump off?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump off. I'm gonna listen in because when they call, I just need to be ready. But let me
60.
just do this.
Okay. Do you want us to shoot any questions your way? Yes, no?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Okay, everybody. We're dedicating the show today to Shock G of Digital Underground. Made his transition yesterday. Yes, I'm hurt. I'm devastated. No joke. These people, God puts different people in your life or in our lives for all kinds of reasons. And, having people give us joy, that means a lot. That means a lot. And I just thank God for him. I thank God for Shock G. Shock G. Yeah, I mean, just 57. I was like, oh my gosh, y'all getting real close to y'all getting in my space now. What's that? Oh.
10.
Okay. But that'll lead me to a question later on for you, Doctor.
Okay.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. At the top of the hour, we'll be talking about what you should do if you have an encounter with the police. Yeah, that's something to think about, everybody. What you should do. If it's in your home, if it's in your car, if you're walking down the street. We're going to walk through that, if you will. That's right. As we're watching more and more police killings for a variety of reasons begin to stack up, if you will. We're talking with Dr. Ivan Walks, former DC Public Health Commissioner, about the Black Health Trust. The Black Health Trust. What is that? Well, it is something that that you really, really, really need to know about. You will be able to have access to some of the best doctors in the world at no cost. They're turning their time and their energy over to you. And we want to talk about that as we're looking at COVID-19. We are still struggling with vaccine skepticism, hesitancy, but people are taking the vaccines more and more. And yet, the J&J, we're trying to figure out if they're going to be able to get that back, that one-shot dose, if we're going to be able to get that back on the market. And then, even pre-pandemic, we have seen the health disparities that exist between the Black community and the white community and just about everybody else. We are nearly at the bottom in every particular space. Maternal mortality, heart disease, obesity, on and on and on. So we want to talk about how it is that we can be as helpful as we can be. Because I'm telling you, I'm driven to this today in part by Shock G. Many of us who grew up in my generation know Shock G from Digital Underground. That's the first place we saw Tupac Shakur. 57 years of age, found dead in his hotel room last night. Dedicating the show to him and his family. Born Greg Jacobs, he gave us so much wonderful music. 57 years of age is so young. And even in Chicago, Inglewood, poor Black community, proud community. Average age, life expectancy is 60. If you go to the north side of Chicago, that's affluent and white, it's about 90. A 30-year gap. What does that say? Let's talk with Dr. Ivan Walks. Do we have Dr. Maxey with us?
Still going straight to voicemail.
Okay, because I'm hearing some static and I want to bring that down. But let me go to Dr. Walks. The Black Health Trust. What is it?
The Black Health Trust What it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity for us doctor people and us scientist people, because everyone is not a physician. We have a lot of amazing physicians. We also have other scientists, immunologists, other folks that are really intelligent about Black health. So it's an opportunity for us to take our time, our tools, our talent, and make it available to our community. And it's an opportunity for our community to hear from people that you really will not hear from unless you make a doctor's appointment or you have this kind of a connection. There's nothing else like this. There's no place else you can go where you can routinely, every Sunday afternoon, 12 o'clock Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central Time, really tune in and get the experts. And a lot of times we say, well, this is the best Black person. That's always good enough for me. But for those of you who just want the best person, this is the best person, period. So next, for example, on May 2nd, we're going to have Dr. Francis Collins on the Black Health Trust. Dr. Francis Collins is not Black. He's the person that untangled the human genome. He's Dr. Fauci's boss at NIH. So we reach across the spectrum to get the best advice that we can get. And I'm really hoping that we can get Dr. Maxey to join us this morning. Dr. Randall Maxey, amazing human being, MD, PhD, former president of the National Medical Association, has brought together some of the top medical and scientific minds in the country, most of whom just happen to be Black and look like us. And those people are just dropping tremendous amounts of knowledge in a way that people can understand. And that's the key. You know, we doctors like to sound like we're really smart, but sometimes we have to focus on who we're trying to get the message to. And that's what the Black Health Trust does.
Well, you know, and how to talk to me. I mean, and of course, he's a Howardite. Hello, everybody. Howard's in the house. Okay, that's enough of that. I'm a bison. Yes, I am. But no, having said that, I went to Howard, and Howard has a hospital. We don't own it anymore, but what was wonderful was, and I don't know if, I think we were so close that we didn't realize what we were looking at. You had Dr. Samuel Lafall. You had one of the top cardiac surgeons, transplant surgeons in the world. They were right there on the campus. I mean, right there. So my question for you is, when you talked about Black health, are there certain things that impact Black people differently? I mean, because, you know, physically we adapt to our environments, right? You know, vitamin D, we're vitamin D deficient because we come from, it's called the sunshine vitamin, right? If you're from these warmer climates.
Right.
So talk to me. You talk about Black health. I mean, is this just social or is this scientific?
The answer is yes, Santita. It's social and it's scientific. There are predispositions that we have that are things that are more common in our community than in other communities, and that's true in communities that are not Black. Certain groups of people have certain types of blood issues that are more common for them, certain kinds of lung issues that are more common for them. I think for us, the challenge is that we tend to have less of the environmental advantages. And so we tend to be in areas that are called food deserts because we can't get good and healthy food. Poverty is the great inequalizer. There's so many inequities that are related to poverty, and poverty tends to hit us more often and hit us harder than other communities. And so we don't have access to a lot of the things that would make us healthy and keep us healthy. And then when we are ill and we need help, we don't have the same level of access to the kind of care as a community. Not to say there aren't places where we get great care and where we are very healthy, but again, when you fold in poverty, you fold in some of the other challenges that we have as a larger, very diverse African-American community, things are very unequal. And so when you look at those numbers that you cited earlier, you will find those 30-year gaps in life expectancy. It's just horrific.
And, you know, and it's poverty because guess what? In the United Kingdom, specifically in England, the royal family lived 30 years longer than their subjects. It's like it's the Inglewood north side of Chicago Gap that you see in England too. So poverty really is at the heart of this. But you know what? We have this great man, the former head of the National Medical Association. You know, you have the American Medical Association, and black people had to create our own professional associations. We have the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest black bar association in the world. And the correlative for medicine is the National Medical Association. Well, he's the former head. And those of us who thought we wanted to be doctors, we thought we had what it took, at least until we got through zoology at Howard. Yes. Yes. You know, we were part of the U.S. NMA at Howard, so thank you. This great Howardite and indeed brilliant physician who continues to give and give and give and give. Uh, Dr. Randall Maxey, welcome to the show. We're honored to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and be with you.
Oh, thank you. We've been talking with you know what? I mean, of course, Dr. Walks got ahead of me with this fantastic introduction, but you really have done so much. And I guess retirement is something you're never ever going to do. You remind me of my dad, who extends his best regards to you, by the way. You all just don't stop. Medicine, it seems like it's a ministry for you. Why?
It is. It is. The day I graduated with my degrees, I went back to my home, and my whole church of ladies who baked cakes and sold pies and came on a Greyhound bus to see me graduate, they had me dedicate my degrees back to God in the service of Him. And so I can't forget that. But I do recall, based upon what you were just saying, when I first got to Howard, having gone to all Caucasian-based schools, I literally cried at seeing my first black professors at Howard, the people you mentioned, LaSalle LaFall and William Montague Cobb, et cetera. I had never had that experience. I'm so proud and blessed that I had that background.
Well, bless your heart. And we all had Dr. Williams, who taught chemistry, and we thought he was the best teacher, but the worst. But he wrote for the MCAT. So you know if you wanted to take the MCAT, you had to take Dr. Williams because he was going to be tough, but he was going to get you prepared, and that's what we get at these HBCUs. Dr. Maxey, the Black Health Trust. Why is that necessary now, and how can we get more people involved?
Well, that's so important. We created a Black Health Trust to make sure that we provided credible information to communities of color. We know there's so much bad information, inaccurate information, misdirected information on the internet and in print that many of our people, they read the internet and they say, oh, I'm going to grow horns if I take that vaccine. And we wanted to make sure we were getting the best information possible. And we know that information changes over time, but we want to make sure that we have the best scientific information we can to protect people. And I have to go back historically and say one of the bad things in our community, and we came out of slavery where we got secondhand, third-hand, and fifth-hand food, and in order to cover up the green mold and stuff on that food, we had to create all these gravies and salted flavors, and that soul food is so good, but it is the root of a whole lot of the evil that happens to our diet and our bodies and has developed into things that have become epigenetic, and we're unhealthy because of it. It's good. I love it, but we have to get away from that stuff and find better ways to eat, because eating what Elijah Muhammad said, you are what you eat. And we have to follow that. That is the root of a lot of our problems. Not all, but a lot when it comes to your body's health.
Well, it's very interesting. We eat very differently even than how I grew up with my great-grandmother and my grandmothers. And my grandmothers just passed away over the past 5 years. They were in their 90s. But they did eat very differently. My mother's mother in particular was a vegetarian, and she ate raw. She said this whole raw movement, she was very, very sharp until she passed away. She said, I don't know what you're talking about. We always ate raw. And meat was not at the center of our diet. She said we couldn't afford it. And a chicken, you didn't have a whole chicken to yourself. The chicken you had to make that work for the whole family. 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20, however many there were of you. What can we do with these food deserts, Dr. Maxey, that we have in our community? Because we don't have equal access to equal high quality food that is affordable. Whole Foods is whole paycheck, right? What can we do?
That's right. Well, there's a relative of Dr. Neighbor Stevens who came on the Black Health Trust and told us how to grow our own food. And even a little garden, something at the church, something on your ranch if you have it. If you have land, we need to start growing our own food, having our own communities of food. And that's the only way you can guarantee. I'm not even sure, and I had a conversation with a pastor last night, that what's labeled organic and good at these grocery stores is true. I think there may be mislabeling, especially in our neighborhood.
Well, my mother grows vegetables in their backyard now. And now, oh my goodness, Dr. Walks, Dr. Maxey in the driveway. I said, I think you're going to get put out.
Wow.
You're going to get put out the neighborhood, Mom. She said, I do not care. I know where this cucumber comes from. And we all go by and get tomatoes and things from Mom now. I think she's going to turn the whole backyard. I think it's going to become a farm. I'm not kidding. But you know what she's doing? She said, this is what you need. You need to do that. You need to grow herbs. You need to grow something. And I think you're bringing it to, you're giving us the power back when you say that, Dr. Maxey. There are things that we can do.
And think about the exercise she gets putting that stuff in the ground and pulling it out and tending to it, which is a part. I think she's part of the real cycle of life that we ought to be doing much more. Growing our own food, sustaining it, and making it a community project. Doesn't just have to be your garden. It can be our garden. And it can be maintained by the community. I think that is so important, especially in these uncertain times.
What about, in these uncertain times, in addition to, where do you stand on the vaccine? We hear about vaccine hesitancy. We hear about vaccine skepticism. I mean, and the fact is, it's white Republicans, for a whole host of reasons, who are really more skeptical and more, not just hesitant, more skeptical and more resistant than Black people are. But are you seeing the pushback lessen in the Black community, or is it still about the same?
I think it's becoming much less as we see more and more what the real science and statistic is. I had a good friend of mine who's a member of the Nation of Islam in my office, and he was refusing to take the vaccine. And we had a heart-to-heart talk that I wanted him to live, and he ended up getting sick. He didn't have the virus, but he did go and get the vaccine, and he's doing much better now. I think they just need to hear common sense from people that they trust. I believe in the vaccine. I got the first vaccine I could when I could get it. I had my entire family vaccinated. I encourage my patients. I require my staff to do it. It makes sense. And if you look at the numbers, there are going to be people who are going to die today. There are going to be people who are going to get vaccine today. That doesn't mean the two events are related. And the statistics will tell you that the vaccine works.
Well, so talk to someone who is hesitant or skeptical. Someone who, because we have a lot of prominent people in our community. I won't name any names because we have a lot of respect and love for them, who are making very, very convincing arguments not to take the vaccine.
The first thing I tell them, if somebody wanted to put a chip in you, wanted to put a poison in you, you think they're going to wait on a vaccine to do it? When's the last time you went to have your blood drawn at Quest? When's the last time you breathed the air in Los Angeles? When's the last time you had bottled water? If somebody's going to do something to you, it's been done already. They're not going to wait on a vaccine. A lot of people think that there's evil there. I believe that's extremely unlikely. People talk about Pfizer is evil. They created a vaccine, but they have no problem taking those little blue pills without question to help their life of intimacy. So I think we're misdirected.
He put this so elegantly. I love it. Taking those little, and they are still taking the little blue pills to help their lives of intimacy. I love that. So elegantly put. What difference? And I'm going to ask you, Dr. Maxey, and you, Dr. Walks. You You said something that really touched my heart, Dr. Maxey, that when you saw your first black medical professor, my brother Jonathan had an experience very similar when he was at North Carolina A&T. He said to see people as dark as I teaching physics, because colorism is an issue, in our community. He said, I saw people who really, really looked like me, who were teaching who were teaching economics, the most complex subjects, and they were helping me to understand them, pushing me to go to Northwestern to get my MBA. Right? What difference does a black doctor make in our lives?
Well, there's a saying that somebody gave me. I don't even know who gave it to me. They said people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's what our doctors bring to the table. People trust us. We take the time to talk to our patients. We reason with them. We're one of them. And that trust is so important, but you require patience. But the medical system is so jacked up nowadays that you're not going to make your quota in a day when you're given 6 minutes to see a patient, and that patient may need 20 minutes of your time. And most black doctors will give that time, and that's very important. And we transmit that we do care. We have some of the best, talented, well-educated physicians in the world. Dr. Richard Williams, one of our advisors, has written several books. There are two now, which are in the Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C. The first book on Black-related diseases, where he features major scholars, and the second one is on Black physicians, and it highlights some of the people you named at the beginning of the program. We have great doctors, and in antiquity, we were the first doctors. There was this doctor named Hippocrates that decided he was so-called the father of medicine, or somebody said he was, and he diagnosed diabetes by having his fingers stuck in a bottle of urine, and he would taste it and say it was diabetes. It was sweet. Imhotep, who existed 5,000 years before, would say, pee in the sand, and if the ants come toward it, you got diabetes. He wasn't going to taste that stuff. So we go way back to the Egyptians, the scientists who invented the Everest papyrus, etc. We were the original intelligentsia of this earth, black people. We simply now find ourselves in a downtrodden place, but that's not where it started. We taught people what was really true. We made the first discoveries. We were the intelligent people.
Well, yes, because the Romans did steal our libraries, everybody. Come on now. Dr. Walks, a black physician, what difference does that make to a black person? I can only imagine a child seeing you or Dr. Maxey walk in. I mean, just because number one, it changes them psychologically, it changes your sense of possibilities, but it does relax you. I mean, because you will have someone who you can kind of physically, you see someone's posture change and say, Doc, come on now. What do you think about this? Talk to me. Because I got my mom in my ear, I got my dad, I got my brothers. Come on.
Santita, it makes a difference in so many ways that we would need another hour just to list a number of ways. When someone walks in and they see a black physician and they see them at Howard, I have a nephew that just graduated from Meharry Medical School last year. There are few of us, right? Compared to our percent of the population, we are way below the percentage of black doctors, and that's not changing. So we have to support our schools like Howard, like Meharry, like Morehouse, like Drew, where we have people coming out that look like us because it matters. But let me tell you another place where it matters. It matters where I've been on the faculty at Howard and at George Washington University. And there is something about us being every place we need to be, because black patients don't only go to Howard and Morehouse and Meharry and Drew. They go other places too. And so we need to be those places because we can be advocates. When I see a black doctor, I think that there's a possibility that that person is going to advocate for me and is maybe going to understand me, maybe going to take some time to listen to me. maybe not going to assume that because I'm black that my complaint about pain should be ignored. There are so many things that happen to us when we go into majority institutions. We go into places where black doctors and black nurses and black advocates are not, that it's a challenge. One of the things Dr. Maxey said, first of all, I love listening to Dr. Maxey. Dr. Maxey is he is a living treasure. There are so many people in our community that we need to recognize all the time for the work that they have been doing for decades and continue to do. Okay, enough about Dr. Maxey. let me say this. I love Dr. Maxey because of what Dr. Maxey does and who Dr. Maxey is and the example that he sets for others of us to do. But let me say one last thing about this.
Okay, because I've got a minute and a half.
Okay. One last thing about this. When we go in and we see that black person there, let's make sure that we acknowledge and we respect that person and that we give that person the information that they need. Please stop coming to the doctor unprepared and walk in and saying, well, I think I take a pill, but it's green and the bottle was at home. You could have brought the bottle with you. Make a list of your medications, keep it with you. So when you go in, you can talk to your doctor. Keep track of things like how much you sleep, because the doctor's going to ask you what's happening with your sleep, what's happening with your appetite. There are some basic things that we need to educate ourselves about so that when we go to the doctor is better able to help us.
Help them help you. Dr. Ronald Maxey, the founder of the BlackHealthTrust.org. The last 30 seconds belong to you.
Well, thank you. And Dr. Walks does something very important for doctors he's around. He lifts them up. We need to lift each other up because by the end of the day, we all get beat down by the system, and that is so important. And I lift him up as a great communicator, great psychiatrist, great psychologist, and we need to do that to our own. And we need to train white doctors to help take care of black patients the best they can because we can't see all that we have.
And amen to that. BlackHealthTrust.org. Intimate partner violence. You want to find out about COVID-19. They deal with us holistically, everybody. And it's not for black people only, but it's the Black Health Trust. It's by doctors you can trust. I'm Santita Jackson. Let's do this. Let's do this, everybody. Let's get healthy. Let's talk about
And we'd like to have you come speak to us, Santita, and we'd like you to come.
Oh, I don't know what I can say, but sure, I'll talk, of course. Certainly, you have my ringing endorsement. Love you, Dr. Maxey. Love you, Dr. Walks. Let's talk about the police and what you should do if you encounter them. For the Santita Jackson Show, just a few minutes. Dr. Maxey, I'm honored. I would love to do whatever I can, but I certainly want you to come back on the show so that we can talk about. I'd love for you all to come back regularly so we can talk about what you talk about.
Well, thank you. And I know your brothers and your father well.
And did you know Dr. Andrew Thomas?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you know he lived
very
across
well.
the street
Project
from us.
75.
That's right. Oh my gosh! But he lived across the street from us. He was our physician, and everybody. Project 75 was something that he helped to initiate, and it was a project that got more black people into and through medical school than at any other time in the history of our country. And we need to revive that.
We do. So I knew Andy quite well.
Oh, and you know his son's a doctor down in Texas, Andre.
Really?
Oh,
I don't know him.
Andre went to Howard, undergrad and for medical school, and now he is married with 4 children. His children are at Howard. I can't believe it. Andre's like my baby brother. And
wow.
Oh yeah, and now he's a physician doing quite well.
Oh, we have to find him. We have to find him.
I will call him and connect you.
Okay, but we really do want to get you on our program.
I would love to. I don't know what I could talk about, but I would certainly love to.
And your dad.
Oh, well, you know
what?
And your dad. Let's get him early. I was talking. Dr. Walks made that request. You know, with Parkinsonism, he's got the sunset syndrome, and so if we get him early, he sounds really, really strong.
Good. Well, we'll talk offline. I know you got to go now, but I want your dad and you.
Okay, we will do that. In fact, you know what? If I could connect you and Daddy later today, I'd like to do that. Okay, I will do that. This
excellent.
Is just so that you know, Dr. Walks was pushing for this last week.
Okay, good.
I had to say
So
it.
Dr.
That's
Walker
why-
is my elder, my hero.
Oh, we love him and we love you. But you know what? Next time, you know what? I'd love to have you all come back to come back and talk about this story that I pulled from the Guardian today. I'm gonna have to let you all go. But the bones of the black children who died in 1985 in the MOVE explosion or the MOVE bombing in they've been used in Ivy League schools in an anthropology course. The bones of these black children.
What?
And
What?
Yes. Oh, I will send this story to you, Dr. Walks, and then you can forward it to Dr. Maxey.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Because I would like for you, if you could, if you can, on Monday, come back and talk about this, because it's just very disturbing to me. Because I remember the bombing of MOVE, and to think that they took the bones of those children and put them in an anthropology course.
Wow.
It's outrageous.
Henrietta Lacks.
Yeah.
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 So okay.
Yeah,
So
send me the information, Santita. I'll forward it, and Monday morning I'll be able to come back and I can check with Dr. Maxey and see if we can make that happen.
Because I really would like to. I'm sorry. Somebody just sent me an email. I really want us to talk about that, because those are the things that when you talk about hesitancy and skepticism, when you see things like that, and before they make the paper, we've already talked about it in our community. You know that.
Yeah.
So that's why I want people to. That's a horrible thing. It's horrible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
I mean, come on, you collect the bones. This was not even 40 years ago.
We have Attorney Patillo, Attorney CK, and Sergeant Kennedy on.
The police chief was a guy named Willie Williams.
Oh, look, I remember Mayor Good, all of that. I thought it was horrible at the time. Dropping the bomb on the people was horrible. And I remember, David Brenner, the comedian, and led by Bill Cosby. I love Dr. Bill Cosby, because they were Philadelphians. They had a big benefit for the people of MOVE in the big park in Philly. And my father and my brother Jesse and I flew up there with them to be a part of that. It's horrible. So I'm gonna send this to you, and so that you can have it, because it's something you all need to look at, and maybe you all need to say something about that today.
Oh, we can send that. Ivan, I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
So,
thank
Sounds
you.
good, Randall.
That's
all right. Thank you, Santita.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Okay.
Love you. All
love you so much. You know I do.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Do you know Joan Murray?
Oh, are we still there? Dr.
Maxey? I said, do you know a lady named Joan Murray?
No, I do not. What does she do?
Well, she was, and today she had the largest black advertising firm in New York, but she's a good friend of your mother.
Oh, okay. I will ask. I'll ask Mom.
Okay, very good. Talk to you later then.
Absolutely. God bless you.
Thank you.
Dr. Walks, would you like me to text this to you or email you?
Dr. Walks hung up.
Okay, no worries. I'm going to text it to him right now.
And Attorney CK keeps going straight to voicemail now, but we do have Attorney Patillo and Sergeant Kennedy on.
Okay. Hi, guys. How are you?
I've been on, and I'm glad that connection. Randall, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, you all still there?
Yeah, no, I was.
Okay.
I was. You know what? That's interesting. I was trying to call Randall, and somehow we got back to you.
60 seconds.
Well, that's all right. Well, I'm gonna send this to Dr. Maxey as well, and so that's gonna be that. Just so that you all have this.
Okay.
Okay, because I want you to have this.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Santita. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay.
How you doing?
Okay. All right. No, I think we still have Dr. Maxey there.
Okay, now it's just Attorney Patillo and Sergeant Kennedy.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Because I want to talk about that on Monday. All right. Sergeant Kennedy?
Yes, ma'am. I am here again.
I'm so glad that you are. Bless your heart. We got a lot to talk about. And thank you so much for being here today.
10 seconds.
Okay.
You're very welcome.
And Robert Patillo, he is a stitch. Pay no attention to him and do not try to arrest him.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Friday, April 23rd, 2021. WCPT 820. The nation's largest progressive talk radio station and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minneapolis, St. Paul, really the voice of progressive Minnesota. Thank you, Matt McNeil, for having me on your show yesterday. The AM 950 family, that is, I'm a part of that too. I'm so honored to be a part of that family. Call me or text me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278, GWC Injury Lawyers. They give you the opportunity to text us as well. And I want you to meet my morning stars, Meddy and Bernard and D-Ray and Linear Bob from San Jose. And oh my goodness, Shirley from Philadelphia and Kenneth and Joyce and Bab and Michael Ann and Vicky. Oh my goodness, there's so many of you. And everybody like and share, like and share. We're gonna have really a discussion about what you should do when you have an encounter with the police. I think it's something that we need to really, really break down, because it seems that when we comply, we die. It seems like we can't get this right, or is it the police who can't get it right? I don't know, but we're going to talk about this with Sergeant Sergeant Kennedy, retired sergeant from the Chicago Police Department. Of course, he's the information officer at the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers. Cannot wait to speak with him, Sergeant Sean Kennedy and Attorney Robert Patillo, who hosts his own show on WAOK. He every Sunday from 1 to 4. And of course, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, who is, and of course, Robert Patillo is also the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push. And Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Chair of Rainbow Push, she is also the President of the National Bar Association. We've got a lot to talk about today. So let us get to some of these headlines, everybody. Very quickly, in Chicago, we'll have a high of 59 degrees, mostly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 55 degrees, scattered showers. The Dow closed down 321 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 131 points. S&P 500 closed down 38 points. The Cubs, they were triumphant over the Mets 4-3 yesterday. And today they will play the Brewers. Today, the Sox will be playing the Rangers. And tomorrow, the Twins will face off against the Pirates, everybody. Dante White was buried yesterday. He was mourned at his Minneapolis funeral by such luminaries as Reverend Al Sharpton, who delivered his eulogy, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Senator Amy Klobuchar. The question was asked, aren't our lives worth more, everybody? Sending love to that family. And of course, Shock G of the Digital Underground made his transition at the tender age of 57, sending him much love today. The coronavirus updates. Will J&J vaccines be back on the market? We are going to see a U.S. panel is convening to discuss that right now. India has reported a record 332,000 cases of the COVID virus. And now, I guess we should have expected this, everybody. Pfizer's identified fake COVID-19 shots abroad as criminals are seeking to exploit the COVID-19 vaccine demand. Good news. There is an anti-Asian hate crimes bill that passed the Senate with bipartisan support yesterday. Good on that. The LGBT community today has reason to celebrate. It turns out that Secretary Marsha Fudge of HUD made a decision that's going to make a tremendous difference in their lives. She withdrew a proposed Trump administration rule that would have allowed federally founded single-sex shelters to deny unhoused gender people, that is, homeless transgender people, refuge in facilities matching their gender identities. Voting rights advocates demand that the Senate pass D.C. statehood. Will that happen? Let's talk about that, everybody. So, everybody, let's get right to it. Did you know that the United States Postal Service is monitoring your social media posts? You can't make this stuff up. Oh, yeah, I just had to put that in there, Devin. Had to, because I just had to say it. Everybody, Dante Wright, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Nakia Bryant, Ahmaud Arbery. The lists go on and on with police who kill African Americans, who arrest African Americans. Skip Gate, the celebrated Harvard professor. Remember when he was arrested in his own home in Cambridge? So let's get right to it. Devin, we can bring the music down now. So I want to hear from you. You know, as I gave you this litany of people who have had encounters with police that most of them have lost their lives. Indeed, a New York Times report last week showed that between March 29th and April 17th, and those numbers have continued to mount, a staggering 3 persons per day have been killed by the police, more than half of them black and Latinx. So what is going on, everybody? I mean, what is really, really going on here? And what can we do about it? What should you do when you encounter the police? We've got attorney C.K. Hoffler joining us, and we've got attorney Robert Patillo and Chicago Police Sergeant retired Sean Kennedy, information officer at the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers. Let me start with you, Sergeant Kennedy. Is there any way for us to win? I think of Mr. McMillan standing before George Floyd, imploring him to do something. He said, man, you can't win with these people. Just do whatever you can. And George Floyd said, I'm trying. I can hear something in the background. And so let's try and mute that. Okay. I mean, you saw, was there anything George Floyd could have done before we go into this? Sergeant Kennedy.
Well, first of all, yes, ma'am. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me back to the show.
Of course.
George Floyd, and we're talking about the part where he's actually laying on the ground and he's handcuffed. There is very little that he can do at that particular point. I really still don't understand the reason why he was removed from the vehicle and placed on the ground. Because remember something, if he were to resist, it's only going to justify officers using some level of force. In that situation, based on what we all saw on the camera, you had 3 officers who contained George Floyd who was still handcuffed. There was little to nothing that George Floyd could have done. That was a situation where those other officers, regardless of how new they were the ones who should have intervened. They may have been new to the game, but we're talking about humanity. We're talking about a person's life. You know, in the police academy, we would never taught to use chokeholds or place a knee on someone's neck. But I think we're all adult enough to know our level of pressure. It doesn't take much pressure to cut off someone's oxygen supply. When I looked at what Chauvin was doing, it's just, I mean, it's incredible to see how comfortable he was. It was almost, I think about how when a lion is out in the field and they're catching some type of game, they have him in a neck hold. Even after the animal has died, they make sure they still hold on to that neck just to ensure that this animal is dead. And as I watched Chauvin with his knee on his neck and then readjusting it in so many different, manner, I feel like he wanted to make sure that this person was dead. Even though he talked about he was concerned about the crowd, even though when you listen to him speak to the Sarge over the audio, he talked about how, this guy was much bigger and he felt based on the drugs that possible drugs in his system that he was a threat or however he worded it. But if any of those things were true, you would not have been so comfortable to have your hands in your pockets while you were doing that. So, I mean, this is clearly excessive force. And it's like he wanted to cut off the oxygen to this person and make sure that there was nothing else left. We all have common sense and we all should have humanity, but I believe what I saw on the video with Chauvin, he wanted to ensure that he stopped any possible oxygen from flowing through George Floyd's body.
So you believe that he meant to kill him?
Yes, I do. Because, like I said, we are all police officers. We know that anytime put your body on top of someone's body, whether it's a knee, whether you have them in a bear hug, whether you have them in a chokehold, we can feel if someone is about to, lose consciousness based on us interfering with their flow of oxygen. Like I said, I was never ever taught any type of chokehold. I know how to use them, but we were never taught that. But I have common sense to know that if I were to use a chokehold on someone, I think I would know how to use it appropriately where it's just enough to gain control without killing this person. Based on what I saw, it was almost like he kept repositioning his knee to cut up any oxygen that may have been slipping through on accident. I mean, when I watched, it was almost like this was a death sentence. This was his specific intent. There is nothing that he can say that would make me believe that that wasn't his sole intent to kill George Floyd in the middle of the day on video camera where everyone can see, and probably felt that he would be able to do it with impunity.
Well, he lied to his supervisor. Remember when he spoke with him? And so my question for you is, as we had this gentleman who was out walking, and he said he started following George Floyd and the police. And when he was asked in court why he did it, he said, I was just being nosy. I said, oh, no. I understand. That's black code. He said, he is, number one, this is a black man with the police. This is a tall, big black man with the police. Tall, big black man, good looking with a body. This is not going to end well. And it didn't. So tell me, he kept saying, look, just go with it because you can't win. Is there anything, and George Floyd said, I'm trying. I'm doing everything. Was there anything that George Floyd could have done at any point in that journey, do you think, to mitigate what happened?
I can't see anything because I never saw George Floyd try to struggle. Yes, George Floyd was a larger man than Chauvin, but you also had other officers who were there. I didn't see George Floyd resisting arrest. No, of course, a person can talk a good game. That's no problem. You can talk. Talking is not resisting an arrest. They had George Floyd under their control the entire time. Now, I've seen suspects resist on different levels. I didn't see any of that with George Floyd. I mean, even if George Floyd would have, prior to the initial arrest, stood still and didn't move, they might interpret that as, okay, now you are stiffening up your body to be rigid to resist. Some officers will, since they on body worn camera, they will put out there, they would say, stop resisting. And the person may not be doing anything, but there are some officers whose objective is to have that recorded to try to, justify whatever use of force they're going to do later. But there are times where, officers have said, stop resisting, but the person was not resisting. What I saw as far as them even putting him in handcuffs, I saw George Floyd doing nothing that would warrant that type of behavior. And especially, like I said, once they put him in the vehicle, handcuffed, you have him in total control. What is your justification to now take him out the patrol car, lay him on the ground, and do what you did to him? There's no justification. Once we have someone in control, they're handcuffed, our first thing is we either taking them directly to the station or, if need be, take them directly to the hospital. There is absolutely no reason to take him out the car and place him on the ground. If we had someone who was unruly, we would probably call for a wagon and transfer him from one vehicle to the next vehicle. But if you're worried about someone based on their larger than your stature, once you have them handcuffed and in your vehicle, you would have never taken them out to lay them on the ground. There is no justification for that.
Because I'm just trying to get on the other side. Like, what should we do if we're in that position? If we're in the car when we first saw George Floyd holding the steering wheel, is there anything you think he could have done there? I mean, if let's take George Floyd out of it. If the police approach us in our car, if we're pulled over, because you see the gentleman, the army lieutenant, I believe it was, in Virginia, the police were pulling him over. He kept driving because he wanted to go to a well-lit area. Was that a smart thing for him to do?
I feel it was because, our organization, the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers, a lot of times in the community, we put together workshops called what to do when stopped by the police. And one of the things we recommend when someone is being pulled over by the police is to stop immediately and turn an interior light on inside the vehicle so that the officers can see clearly. But each person has to do what they feel based on wherever he was originally, the Army lieutenant. He may have felt uncomfortable. It may have been a location where there is no one else around. So I can understand why he would drive further to some place that was more lit, because he might have felt as a black man, even though he's in uniform, but as a black man, I need to be in a much more lit place. And I need to have, possible witnesses. Now, of course, when someone does not stop immediately, that is going to take an officer to another level because they're not sure why they're not stopping immediately. But I think me being a black officer, I can relate, and I wouldn't even have to ask, but I can relate why someone did not stop in this dark place while I'm trying to pull them over, but they eventually stopped, I believe it was 1 mile later, in a much more lit place. I would understand that as a black man and a black officer based on what has gone on in our society. I'm not going to be infuriated by that. But for some officers who don't get it, they're going to take that as this is a personal attack. You did not follow my lawful orders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They lose their professionalism. They lose their sight for this is the reason why I'm stopping this person. And they allow themselves to, escalate the situation unnecessarily. Every officer does not have the type of common sense and refinement to be able to still do your job, with decency. But like I said, the actions that lieutenant took by driving further to a well-lit place, that only opened the door for this, I think he was a police sergeant, to show his true colors.
Well, I mean, and this was a Latino officer who pulled him over, who went off. I mean, it's, you know what, CK, we only have a couple minutes left in the segment. What are you thinking about what you're hearing from Sergeant Kennedy, retired Sergeant Kennedy from the Chicago Police Department? Of course, he's the information officer for the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers. And in fact, I want to connect the two of you because he needs to be working with you. Nablio needs to be working with the National Bar Association because this is a problem. I mean, Dante Wright was killed before we even got a decision on the Derek Chauvin case. Then we got Ma'Khia Bryant. Then we got this gentleman in North Carolina. I mean, the hits just keep on coming, CK.
Well, I agree. What I'm hearing, and maybe I'm misinterpreting this, is no matter what Black folks do, their compliance could mean death. So I'm not sure what I can respond to other than we have to have widespread change. We have to have the George Floyd Justice Policing Act. We have to work with the local, on the state and local level, to make sure that there are policing laws that are changed. We have to stop electing people who are not in favor of policing reform and who are against policing reform. And we have to have our communities engaged in these changes, because right now, as we speak, probably 3 more Black folks are being killed at the hands of the police, and they may have completely complied. So I'm not comforted in knowing or in feeling that African Americans who are stopped by the police have a strong likelihood of surviving it. Although I do know that a lot do. My children were stopped by the police about 6 months ago, and they survived it. And they were stopped for no reason. So I think that it is possible to survive it, but there's a more likely than not chance that you will not survive it, particularly if you have like an expired tag or something like that, an expired license, if you have a previous, if you have a record or something like that. And that is a travesty because that is not the same with non-Black and brown people. So that's my response, Santita. We just need to have widespread reform.
Well, 2 minutes.
I just don't see it. Anything else happening?
I don't see it because you keep saying when you comply, you die. I mean, and you're absolutely right.
And you don't comply, you die. You comply, you die. You don't comply, you die. You partially comply, you die. So,
Okay. Well, Robert Patillo, I got 2 minutes before we go to break.
Well, at the same point, it's interesting that we have all of these things the community needs to do, but we're not the people getting paid. We're not the people with the badges. We're not the people with the flag on our arm. We're not the people who are deputized under the Constitution and the laws of the state to be able to pull a deadly weapon on individuals. We don't get to walk around with handcuffs and mace and pepper spray and zip ties and all those things. So it seems to me that it's easier to educate the police force, since that is part of their job, what they're doing, than try to expect the community to somehow change into this utopia where nobody resists, nobody makes dumb decisions. We talk about often what the victim could have done to not be dead, but we don't talk about what we need to do to reform police to see the humanity in individuals' eyes. And I think once we get to that point of seeing these people not as perks, as they are often called, not as guilty before they've been tried of anything, but as actual human beings to give them that human decency, that many of these police shootings and police brutality incidents can be reduced away. But because we have this 18th century, 18th, 19th century idea of policing in this country still, where we have to be chasing and beating and wrestling people to the ground. That is why we still end up with these situations instead of modernizing our police force. Because when you go to other modern first world nations around the world, they don't have a problem where 3 people a day are being killed by cops. It does on the BBC earlier this week, and the concept didn't make sense to European audiences that 3 or 4 people a day will be getting shot by the cops.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about it, everybody. What do you think? I mean, is it us, or does the culture of policing need to change? 773-763-WCPT, the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820 in Chicago, AM 950 Radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Back in just a minute. Regina, I'm coming to you. Wow. I don't even know what to say. Because Sergeant Kennedy, it's like the way you kept breaking it down, I was like, well, gee whiz. This was not going to turn out well. And Sergeant Kennedy, do you know my brother Jonathan?
I know of him. I don't know him personally.
Oh, you should meet him. He's a stitch. But let me tell you, he had an experience, and I think I would love for you all to meet. He was opening up a group of stores, phone stores, and he was on the north side here in Chicago. And of course, to the police, he and his friend in their suits looked suspicious. So they were put in the back of these police cars in handcuffs. His friend freaked out, his business partner at the time. Oh my God, you don't know who this is. Jonathan said, don't say that. Stop it. He said, because what they're doing to us is wrong. And don't mention who my father is. That has nothing to do with this. What they're doing to you and I is wrong, period. Well, it went on, and Jonathan said it went on for what felt like an eternity to him, because he said, when these guys detain you, the likelihood is greater that you will not come out alive. He said, so I'm thinking about my wife, I'm thinking about my children, I'm thinking about my parents, I'm thinking about my siblings, I'm thinking about y'all. Like, wow, this is it? I mean, and that's what pushed him to push on John Burge. It's not that we hadn't seen this before, but it was like, what? And then when they ran his information and found out he was Reverend's son, okay, why didn't you tell us? Okay, we're going to let you go. He said, no. He stayed right in the back of that car. He said, you're going to charge me with something. You're going to do that. Because this, what you've done, I mean, all the nameless, faceless people. Sergeant Kennedy, come on. This is horrible.
But you know something, Santita? I think about the many traffic stops I've conducted, and my traffic stops, for the most part, have turned out very nice. And I look at sometimes the driver's face based on how I approach them, how I talk to them, and I can tell that they're very shocked how humanely I treated them, which is how we all should be treating them, because they're so accustomed to officers being disrespectful, trying to humiliate them, cursing at them, they think that's the norm. And they don't recognize there are a lot of cops out there who are not like that. And I can't tell you the number of people who said, just told me, thank you for speaking to me like an adult. But that's the way it should be.
But it's not. I mean, it's not. That is not how that happens.
I see a great question on your screen.
I just pulled it
for
up.
bystanders.
And when we come back, I want you to bring that up. That's why I brought that up for you, because you've got some.
60 seconds.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to you because D-Ray has a question. I want you all to call in, too. It'll be easier because I have some people on the line. But call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. We'd love to hear your voices today. Tiffany, we're going to come to you, but it would be nice if you called. But that's all right. And Regina, I'm going to go to her. She has a question as well. So, and Regina's been holding, so I'm going to come right to you. And Joyce Anderson, I think you have someone who's fallen in love with you. A lot of them. Sergeant Kennedy, you were and are one of a kind. Love it. That's what you're getting. DG Ronbo, thank you, Sergeant Kennedy. And Lorraine is saying, good question. Okay. And Josephine, thank you for this conversation. Well, thank you for listening. It's your conversation. We need to be having this conversation. How about that?
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. We're talking with retired Chicago Police Department Sergeant Sean Kennedy, Information Officer for the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, President of the National Bar Association, also Chair of the Rainbow Push Coalition. She is the host of her own show on WAOK in Atlanta. Of course, you can listen to it everywhere, every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Of course, Robert Patillo will be on this Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time on the same station, WAOK. He's the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push. Before I get to Tiffany's question, let me go to Regina. Regina, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Santita.
Good morning.
It's Regina Brent from Unity Partnership.
Hey.
Just Google our name. We are located out here in Naperville. You're supposed to have us on your show based on the fact that we wanted to bring in the young people to deal with this type of thing that Adam Toledo just went through. So please make sure that you
then
get
let
in
me go,
touch with us.
I made no promise to get anybody on the show. I'm trying to get to the show from day to day.
No.
So
I'm just saying we're supposed to in the future get together and collaborate
So
something.
What you can do.
Here's what I want to say.
No, Regina, hold on, because let me help you so I can make this happen. I want you to hold when you're done. And what you should do is speak with Devin, the gentleman who answered the phone. Okay. You can leave your information, and then I or someone who works with me will get to you, okay?
I sure will do that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Your comment or question.
My comment is that the only way this is going to be corrected is with police accountability. We have the qualified immunity bill that's being considered by Congress that needs to get to the Senate. The other thing is that basically our people have to step up to the plate. We can't take the burden on what the police is doing unless we come out ourselves and, like Maxine Waters said, be confrontational. Confrontational doesn't mean attack anybody. It just simply means that you get on your job. You bring your children to the police department, black men, black boys, whatever. We had before COVID training, and we did that comply and complain later thing. Well, you know what? It's not working, because when you comply with a system that's already flawed, you're not going to get anywhere. So the bottom line is, what we have to do is put the pressure on our mayors, on our government. When I tell them out here, we don't have black police officers on some of these departments out here. And we have black people that are actually living out here, black and brown people that are not being represented by officers who look like them. So we're working with all the chiefs in the areas out here, asking them to do some diversity hiring, because it's needed. And the other part of it is that when you do diversity hiring, this enables you to have power. You're taxpayers. So you don't let a lily white police department decide how they're going to protect and serve you. You decide that as a citizen. And so it's like voting, Santita. It really is. We have to face the music for what it is. Well, our people need to be educated. So we're going to take House Bill 3653, and we're going to go out in the streets. We're going to put boots on the ground in the street. Anybody can join us, to let our people know what their rights are, first of all. Because that House bill, that the Black Caucus, thank God, they came together and they passed that bill. And it was a pushback against it, because they don't want no cash bail for our black men and boys. They don't want where you can make 3 phone calls instead of 1. They don't want the fact that you can basically not have to worry about that affidavit that's in that complaint form that serves as a great deal of intimidation when you want to file a complaint against a police officer. So I get what Sergeant Sean Kennedy is saying, and he is so right. You know, we have to come out as a community and deal with the issue. We can't hide in our homes, because as long as you hide in your home, and like he said, they plot a case on you when they come up to you, sir. They don't have any respect for you. And then when you say, well, sir, why are you asking me where am I going? Or are you denying? Are you saying that you are not under arrest? You're under arrest because you're not complying. That's ridiculous. And it's going to keep happening as long as we sit back and do nothing.
Well, you know, the thing is, it's not that we have to continue the struggle, because I think of you, as you know, Ranald Robinson, and the struggle that he had in the Chicago Police Department, and all the reform that he and people of his generation tried to implement. What we have to understand is that we all have to get involved. You cannot, as you said, Regina, sit at home.
We have to interpret the law. We have to know the law.
You have to know the law. That's why he's here. You have to interpret the law. But it's something you have to do every day, all the time. It's sustained action. It is something.
They asked me one time, and I'm going to let you go. They asked me one time, Miss Friend, do you think, this is right out here in Naples, do you think, a black cop asked me, Miss Friend, do you think police get up with the intentions of coming out to kill people? They don't get up putting that uniform every day to come out and kill people. I said, no, I don't, sir. I said, but I do think there are police officers who wake up every day and put their uniform on with the intentions of coming out, putting people in a position to be killed.
Well,
a position to be killed.
Well, you know what? I tell you what we will have to do is, you know, leave your information, please, with Devin. And
I will.
And we'll see what else we can do, because the thing is, as urgent as this issue are, there are so many urgent issues that we're hitting, and we are going to have to also begin to press in our churches and in our sororities and fraternities and in the barbershops and in the beauty shops. We have to make this an issue. We can't put it on one person.
I do believe that we have not had, Santita, a case out here like a George Floyd, simply because Unity Partnership is involved. Like next week, I got a meeting with 6 or 7 chiefs out here. And I continue to do that every month so that they will know we're watching you.
Well, the thing is,
so this is the thing that has to be done.
But you know, Miss Regina, we have a lot of George Floyds. That's why Darnella at 17 took the video. The thing is, we believe George Floyd because we saw it this time. George Floyd happens all the time. I read the data to you yesterday from Minneapolis. That is why you now have the Attorney General of the United States looking at Minneapolis, because chokeholds are the order of the day in Minneapolis. That is the 4th worst place in the United States for black people to live. So this happens all the time.
I am very proud of them.
This happens
I worked
all
for the
the time.
Attorney General's office for 30 years, and I'm very proud of how they handled that case.
I'm just glad that he's doing his job. That's what he's supposed to do. But the reason he is doing it, as I go to the other callers and stay right there so you can get your information to Devin, is because of the pressure we're applying. That's it. This is not charity. This is what he's supposed to do. Because this is
I
crazy.
hope every black father take their black sons to the police stations and say, this is Johnny James, and he is my son.
Yes.
And I've educated him. I work every day. I pay taxes every day. I want you to know when your staff see him on the street, show him some respect. Show him some type of badge that can show the community that you know how to do good community policing.
But you know what
I want you to know who little Johnny is.
But I tell you what, take Johnny and Johnny's neighbor. Take all the kids down there.
Yes.
We need to march. It's
Yes.
not just about your child. It's not you. And I'm not implying, and you shouldn't infer that I'm saying that you're saying it's an individual.
That's right.
Thing.
I know.
We need to march all of our children and everybody to the police station.
Yes, we should.
And make them be in the community. Period.
Yes, we should. Yes, we should. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Of course. Thank you so much. Let me go to Noah, is it? I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If not, please correct me.
Yes, Noel.
Okay, Noah.
Noel, good morning.
Okay.
Good morning, Miss Jackson. How you doing?
Wonderful. I didn't know if it was Noah, like my nephew, and like
Yes.
my grandfather. But
Yes.
Talk to me. What's on your mind, Noah?
Yes. My comment is that we cannot legislate our way out of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts with training. When police officers go to the academy and during range training, when they go on the range, the targets are all black. So you always resort to your training. It's easier to shoot an individual based on your training. So when you look at the targets on the range, they are all black targets. So when you see somebody, you don't see a human being, you see a target. That's where it all starts. It needs to start with training and the attitude of officers. You cannot manipulate people's heart and minds.
But I tell you what Dr. King did say. You made me pull up this quote, and I hear you. Because it's a cultural issue. He said, it may be true that the law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless. It may be true that the law can't make a man love me, but it can restrain him from lynching me. And I think that's pretty important. So while the law may not change the hearts of men, it does change the habits of men. Nowhere, you're right. But, we've got to work on some habits, Sergeant Kennedy, because you're telling us how things ought to go, but we're seeing how things do go. And it's a whole universe between you who are part of the community and who work in the community and, what we're seeing. So, Sergeant Kennedy, your response to No Air?
It does start with us. So I want to make sure this is clear. You have a lot of police officers who conduct their duties with honor and respect, period. They are doing a phenomenal job. But when you have rogue police officers who are disrespectful, it overshadows any good intentions that other officers have. We are the examples out there. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of communities, they want to see more Black officers that reflect the makeup of their community. Now, also understand, every Black officer is not going to be a good officer, just like every white officer is definitely not a bad officer. But we have to set the examples. Even before I became a supervisor, based on how I conducted myself with people, I think other officers around me knew what not to do or what I would not tolerate in my presence. So certain things simply did not occur in my presence. As a supervisor in particularly, I was in a position to ensure that my officers were treating citizens with the respect that they deserved. And if I ever saw anything that alarmed me, I would address it. I would not just allow it to happen. If I would have been a supervisor arriving to the scene with George Floyd, I would have immediately stopped that. So there was a question answered earlier by Tiffany Kennedy as far as what should bystanders do. Yeah, so one thing they should do is what they did is make sure you get it on recording, because a lot of times, officers have gotten up even if you have recording, but that recording was so germane to the situation, to the case, because it actually showed just how long Chauvin was cutting off the oxygen from George Floyd's body. So that's one thing. A second thing, if other bystanders who are seeing this, if they can call 911 and demand a supervisor to show up on the scene, tell them that we have an officer who's trying to kill someone. We need a supervisor right now. And I'm thinking about if I was that supervisor and I happened to be in the station and I heard that, I would have the dispatcher, because we have pod cameras everywhere in Chicago, to zoom in to see if they can capture, depending on their location. I know how to use a pod camera to see what's going on. But if we are getting calls over the air that there's an officer killing someone, not only am I going to respond to the thing, but I'm going to come over the air and say something, because these calls are coming for a reason. So I want to make sure that, even if I'm not there yet, to order that officer to stop whatever they are doing. You won't be able to tell me later, well, this person was, he's bigger than me, whatever, but you never told me he was handcuffed. So there's, bystanders are very key witnesses to what's going on. Now, and I also do know that in certain situations or certain neighborhoods, I would not recommend this, but some bystanders would physically get involved, because I think about when I watched the Chauvin trial, how hurt those bystanders felt, knowing that they felt powerless to stop what happened, which is the death of George Floyd. And I'm quite sure they second guess themselves. They're thinking about if we all just rushed him at the same time. Because remember, part of the defense was this crowd was unruly, worried about it. And of course, the video showed that the crowd didn't do anything. But in certain situations, you might have a crowd who might decide to attack police officers to actually stop someone from getting killed. Yes, they're going to get arrested. Yes, they may get hurt. Yes, they may even be fatally shot. But some bystanders are going to respond like that because they know that at least I saved a life. And those, whatever criminal charges, I'm quite sure later will be dropped in court. So it really depends on the comfort level of those bystanders, because it's something that you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life.
Let me go to Pete from New Lenox. Pete, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Santita. How are you?
Good morning.
Santita, I listen to a lot of your callers, and I listen to the show quite often, and I will tell you, the finger's not on the pulse, and a lot of people are bringing it up. My cousin, and I probably shouldn't say this, but my cousin, he is an officer in Chicago. And Santita, the demographics are much less for the population, the black population in Chicago, than white population. But when my cousin shows up on calls, and he routinely, day in, day out calls, there's a little kid that was shot at McDonald's. There's a kid on Lake Shore that was shot. More times than not, cops just aren't comfortable with the black population. It's just, there's really no other way to put it. Police just are not, I don't know if it's the culture or what, because you guys can talk for days and hours.
Pete, let me ask
but you're not talking about these little kids that are getting shot, are you?
Pete, I want to engage you. Just hold on, because you can make a point or we can have a conversation. Which would you like to do? Pete?
I'd like to have a conversation.
Okay, then hold on.
I'm still here.
Because my question is, and I'd like to bring Sergeant Kennedy in. I appreciate your cousin's service. That's important. And a lot of things happen in white homes that we don't even discuss. Like Kyle Rittenhouse, I want to know who his mama is, who would drive her son with a gun to go shoot people. Because that's white pathology, or pathology that is white. Okay? My question for you then is, Sergeant Kennedy, why don't you speak to Pete? Because I think that if he's uncomfortable with black people, I get it. But then he shouldn't be policing black people, right? Or am I wrong, Sergeant Kennedy?
My comment is, any police officer, whether you are white, Hispanic, or black, if you are uncomfortable interacting, serving, and protecting anyone in the black community, you should not be working in the black community, and you truly do not need to be a police officer.
Pete?
Okay. It's not that you work in a black community. You work within the city of Chicago limits, okay? So you can be called up on the Lake Shore Drive, of which he was, And when you say something about the Rittenhouse situation, that's a very typical situation. So what are you going to do, Santita? You going to talk about the lady that let their 13-year-old kid run down an alley with a gun after shooting out car windows for an hour?
No. First off, this boy, no.
I mean, you give me one.
No. I'm about to respond to you because I got a response. Now you just need to listen. Let's engage each other. Kyle Rittenhouse is from, we have not examined his mama, his home, where he comes from, because I got a mama and a daddy. I grew up with both of them. Thank you, Jesus. They've been married almost 60 years. I cannot imagine a universe in which my mother or father would drive my brothers with a gun to a march to shoot somebody and then pick them up once they've done it. And I certainly don't know a black person who's going to walk down the street with a machine gun and be alive to tell the tale and have the police bring them some water. I don't know how that happens. And my thing is, if you're going to serve and protect, that means you're going to serve and protect everybody, Pete. And if you're not comfortable with any segment of the population, then you need to quit. You're in the wrong line of work. Period. That's all there is to it. And you can examine all the things that black people do wrong. Perfection is not, God doesn't even function that way. God knows we're not perfect. Your imperfection should not get you killed by anybody. Your cousin, me, you, nobody has the right to make that decision. That's the problem we have here. And God help us if we're going to run a world like that and run a society like that. It's not going to work. Adam Toledo had dropped that gun. He shouldn't have been shot. To death? Maybe to be wounded, but to death? Shouldn't have been shot in the first place. That's ridiculous. And if perfection is going to be our standard, then nobody is going to make the grade, including you, Pete, and including me. We are all a second away from making a move that could be misinterpreted, or somebody might be having a bad day and you get shot. And you can't come back from that.
May I make a comment?
Yeah, before you go, yes, quickly, because I got to get somebody else on.
Because it grows on you, Santita. So your officer that said that you shouldn't be a cop, you join the force, and then after you're in the year, after 14, 15, 16 years, you know what? When you go to a shooting in Chicago, 90% of the time it's black. It's black. It grows on you.
Let me tell you something. Wait a minute. White people shoot each other. White people shoot each other. No, stop it. White people, most murders are intraracial. White people kill white people more than 85% of the time. Black people kill black people more than 90% of the time. We don't talk about white crime. You act as if white people are blameless and without stain. And the whole culture points to the fact that that is not true. Stop it. This is getting very, very dangerously white supremacist, and that is problematic for me. Don't you come here and tell me all that black people don't do that is right. Don't you come to me with that. And then you can't follow up to me and talk to me about Kyle Rittenhouse, or talk to me about Dylan Roof, or talk to me about Columbine, or Pearl, Kentucky, or Paducah, Mississippi. Paducah, Kentucky, or Pearl, Mississippi. I can keep on going. Now, either we're going to clean this up or we're going to stay filthy. Don't you tell me about what black people do and do not do. And something in my culture. You kidding me? Black people have survived this American experiment. 400 years of degradation, of being 3/5 of a human being while you're 7/5 of the human being. Cut it out. If your cousin doesn't want to care for black and brown people and poor white people, then he needs to get off the force and be gone. Next. Let me go to, who else do we have? Pete.
Eddie hung up.
Okay, that's all. That's good. So why don't you respond? Because we only have a few more minutes here. Let me get a minute literally from you, CK, a minute from you, Robert Patillo, and then I'm going to give a couple of minutes to the sergeant. CK?
Well, I just think, Santita, you said it all. But I will just add, we have to keep fighting. There are going to be people who I believe are going to continue to be racist, continue to be insensitive, continue to not want to serve black and brown communities, and they need to get off the force, period, in the discussion. It's just that simple. And I think for those of us who do believe in solutions and do want to have a better America in terms of policing and stop this police brutality, we have to continue to fight on all fronts, from the federal front, the state front, in our communities, and hold the police accountable and get rid of those police officers who don't want to do right by everyone. We know who they are. We need to get rid of them and put in place things where they be held accountable.
Robert Patillo, 1 minute.
It's important that we root much of the thinking that we just heard, because what often happens is we'll say, well, we just need more black officers. But when that blue culture gets into black officers, then you simply end up with a more brutal version of white supremacy. You can look at the Red Dog units in Atlanta, who are all but a terrorist organization that had police uniforms on. So once we are able to cut that cancer out and start seeing people, as I said earlier, as human beings with innate humanity within them, then we start policing them as humans and not simply as a rebel force that needs to be subdued, but rather as human beings with the same rights as everyone else.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, you're only going to have about a minute and a half, but you got it, Sergeant Kennedy.
Thank you. I know it could make people uncomfortable to talk about race. And that's why it's important to have these open discussions. Like your past caller, he expressed what he felt, and I can appreciate that. I love to dialogue with people because what he expressed is exactly how a lot of police officers feel. And we need to have those open discussions so we can understand what our biases are, and which will reflect why some of us are treating Black and brown residents in the community the way that they do. So, I don't have a problem with a person, sharing their perspectives, because I think it's important so we can actually start addressing those issues. And yes, it's okay to be uncomfortable or to speak those things that's going to make us uncomfortable, because that's, to me, is how we move forward with the progress. But I keep thinking about the many people who I see who may be on public assistance or might have all type of socioeconomical problems. And I know there are some officers who are going to treat them and use that as a bias in how they interact with them. But it takes a true professional who actually understands their oath of office to serve and protect, and not allow that bias to treat them less as a human being. And sometimes, like I said, we have to set the example and show other officers how we should still be treating this person that we feel may be challenged in certain areas with the economy. But it's up to us to show it.
Absolutely. And you know what? I want this show to be the comfortable space to have uncomfortable conversations. Bring that down a bit, Devin. This will always be a comfortable place for you to have uncomfortable conversations. But one thing I will not countenance is the disparaging of any community. White, black, brown, yellow, red, indigenous. It doesn't matter. If we're going to look at pathologies, you don't have black pathologies. You don't have white pathologies. You've got pathologies. And I don't want to just get black officers, people who look like me, or doctors who look like me. I want people who understand what life on the downside of advantage is like. I want someone who's compassionate and kind and human and humane, period. And those who are not, you can't serve me. You need to find something else to do. Until Sunday, when I see you on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson, I'm Santita Jackson, sending all my love to you, everybody. Be safe out there. God bless you. Have a great weekend. All right, you guys, do you all have anything else you want to say before we go here? Oh, Linear Bob said.
No,
no, keep on
Santita,
talking.
I do have to run.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have to run, Santita, but this has been great. Thank you so much for including me on this great conversation.
Send me the clip from Court TV, please, because I don't have Court TV on my Direct TV. So
okay, I will. As soon as they get it to me, I'll get it to you.
So
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Love you guys.
All righty.
Okay.
Okay, love you too. Bye-bye.
Do you all want to have? Do you have anything else you want to say?
I do want to. I'm sorry. I did want to be in touch with the gentleman so that we can collaborate with the National Bar Association with policing reform in our position and all that. I did want to coordinate. If you could put us in touch.
Can I catch you all by text today?
Absolutely.
Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
No, of course, Sergeant
Bye-bye.
Kennedy.
Yes, ma'am. This has been so engaging. I love it.
Well, you saw me get a little peppery. We're on Facebook Live right now. See, the thing is, let me tell you something. I am so tired of hearing people tell me that black people have to be perfect in order to be treated humanely. I don't agree with that. And if you sign up for this kind of work as a servant, you serve people. all people. And if you have a problem with some people, I understand that. You need to get some help, and you should not work with those people, and you shouldn't be on the force, because as a police officer, you're supposed to serve everybody. Everybody. Period. If that's something you cannot do, then it's something you should not do. Then go. God bless you. You need to do something else. You don't need. I don't want
I
to hear
agree
any.
with you.
Senator. Sorry, I keep calling you senator. Maybe that's what you're going to go to. But Sergeant Kennedy, I keep hearing people tell me what black people are not. I'm sick of that. I'm moving on what black people are. Black people are surviving, thriving people under the most heinous of conditions. We have risen and risen and risen. And out of our brokenness, we have sought to be whole. So do not call me with all that black people are not doing. When I see over and over again every representation of humanity, and we are all representations of God's idea, who have pathologies and pain and craziness in our homes and in our streets. It was not the black culture that produced Dylan Roof. I didn't do that. It was his mama and his daddy. And no one went into his neighborhood and into his house and disaggregated all that made him someone who would go into a church, a house of worship during a church service, and kill everybody he saw. You need to talk to me about that. You need to talk to me about two boys who sat in a high school with their friends and then decided to go in one day, plotted it, and killed people. You need to talk to me about Leopold and Loeb, who said they were going to have the perfect murder, and they found a boy and killed him. You need to explain that to me. So no. You're not going to come to me and talk to me about all the black folks ain't doing. No. And then you turn a blind eye to your stuff. You need to explain to me the kind of house that Derek Chauvin came from, where he could grind his knee into a human being's neck for 9.5 minutes while people were asking him, begging him to stop, and all he did was pat his gun. Oh no, darling, you got to come to me with something better than that.
This is so true, because when you open those conversations up, you actually force individuals to have to look at the other side to it. And that's what I love about these candid, engaging conversations on your show. I really appreciate it, because like I said, all this gentleman did is put out there what a lot of officers feel. And you think about, well, there's a lot of officers whose perspective is just like his, and they're actually out there, in the communities. That might explain why black and brown residents are being treated the way that they are. And instead of getting rid of those officers, the departments, and in particular the unions, protect them and keep them in place. And that's an even larger problem in this, whole scheme of things.
Wait a minute, and I'm supposed to feel sorry for you? Are you serious? No, darling, then you need to find another path into the middle class. Because police work clearly is a job. It is not a passion for you. Then you need to go on.
Mm-hmm.
But until you start taking, if we're going to look at sickness, then let's look at the sickness everywhere.
That's right.
Okay? Don't you come to me and tell me all that black folks are not. I'm sick of hearing that. I'm sick of my hair not being straight enough, my skin not being light enough. I'm sick of all of that. Oh, well, the things that you do, well, you're a little different from me. No, well, you're more like me. I'm sick of that. And everybody and other people are getting sick of it too. I don't need to be like you for you to respect me. Because quite frankly, some of the things you do are just off to me. Off. I'm trying to figure out how you produce these children. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out how in slavery, black women would raise children who would come and lynch me or my children. What?
Even going back to slavery, think about how white people back then kept saying that blacks was inferior. But if you actually felt black people were inferior, how would you allow your white babies to be suckled by black mothers?
And then you raise them to hate them. I don't understand that. That is really crazy to me. It's very unhealthy. So everybody, stop it. I shed no tears for you when you know you don't like the people that you've got to serve, but you're not trying to serve them, you're trying to lord over them. You're not trying to serve them, you need them to be subservient to you. You're not trying to serve them, you're trying to hurt them. And you need to go. You don't deserve
That's
the
right.
badge. You don't deserve it. Sick of that. I'm tired of people walking through my neighborhood. I live in the black community. And wherever I live, if I walk through a white community and see that you have contempt for me, you should not have that job. You think I'm going to give you some space on that? Oh, no. Oh, he's out here to protect and serve. No, he's not. He's the same kind of cop who might pull a woman over and try to compromise her. Yeah, it's a power trip. Domestic violence is rife in the force. Drug addiction, alcoholism. There are a lot of problems that these police officers have, but there are no toxicology reports of you after you've killed somebody. Hey, don't bring me a tray of what black people are not. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Or if you do it, then I want you to show me all the stuff you ain't doing this right. That is crazy. That's crazy. That's unhealthy. Did you see these people? Sergeant Kennedy, did you see these people beating the folks at the Capitol January 6th? I'm like, who does that?
Well, when that insurrection occurred on January the 6th, it just put it on national blast so everyone can see what black people, in particular black officers, have been saying all along. It wasn't surprising to us. We know that there are white officers who work on our respective police departments that are part of extremist groups. We know that just based on how they conduct themselves. So this was no surprise to us. Even when you go back and listen to tapes of black Capitol Police officers speaking, they talk about what they have been going through. There was an article that went back, I think they went back to 2012, if I'm not mistaken, where over 100 or over 200 black Capitol Police officers have filed lawsuits based on the racism that's within their department. So like I said, what we saw, it was not shocking to us. It just shined a national spotlight on what we knew was going on anyway. But now what we're interested in, now that it's out in the open on the national level, how are these respective departments, how is the government going to move forward and address this? Because you should not have officers who are part of these extremist groups on your police departments, because they're not trying to serve and protect the residents of their community. They are trying to be their overseer, trying to patrol and control and oppress the residents of these communities. So we're looking to see what they're going to do with this, how they're going to address this moving forward.
And you know what? And that's what needs to happen. So again, I said, do not come to me. Don't cry for me, Argentina. I'm not crying for you. You need to find another job. It's just like a pastor who doesn't like people. How do you do that? You're in the wrong line of work, honey. Then maybe you need to go into the halls of academia and be a researcher. But you don't need to be a pastor. Okay?
Officers like that, they're doing it for the money, and they're doing it for in my opinion, for the power trip that they feel they have the authority to be able to rule over other people. That's it. They feel they don't have to like the residents of the community, but they utilize their salaries that come from taxpayer dollars, and it gives them that authority to be able to rule over and oppress people.
I told you, it's a path to the middle class. I got it. But that's not what you're supposed to do then. It's like having a mean nurse. I mean, not someone who's mean because she is, or he, because they're overwhelmed and they're underappreciated. No. You just don't like people, then darling, you're in the wrong line of work. Okay? If I didn't like people, I couldn't do this job. I couldn't. Because you need to like and love people and respect people in order to. What did Dr. Maxey said something my father says all the time, Sergeant Kennedy. People care that you know, but they need to know that you care.
Yes.
That's it. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can steer somebody who's traveling along, then my living would not have been in vain. You got to help somebody. You have to love people. If you're going to work with people, if you're not into these people, then you need to go and do something else. There are jobs where you can be by yourself. Then go do that. But if you're going to be a police officer, which is a servant, you need to like people. You need to love people. You need to understand people. You need to be compassionate toward people. If you can't do that, then you need to go someplace else. The culture's got to change. And there's got to change in a lot of places and spaces, everybody. That's the gift, Sergeant Kennedy, of COVID. We are having what my friend Pastor Stephen Thurston has written a magnificent book, Mirror Moments. We're having a mirror moment. We got to look at ourselves for real. We have to do that.
Yes, and the change starts with us. We can't wait. Should not wait for other people to make those changes. The change needs to start with us. We have to push and force the issue and keep that pressure going nonstop. And like I said, right now we are in a movement, and the momentum is going forward, and we're not about to stop. We're about to kick up even more pressure until it's done. It may take the next generation before it is completely done, but we're going to get it piece by piece by piece, which is what we're actually getting right now, piecemeal. We want things just to occur. But like I said, understanding just how systemic racism plays into this, classism, the caste system, it's embedded. It did not occur overnight, and it's not going to reverse overnight. But, steps here, but we just have to keep pushing it. And trust me, we're going to get it. We're going to get it. We're not about to stop our momentum.
Well, you know what? I want to thank you for your work and the work that you and my dear sister friend Sonia Wiggins Pruitt, the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers. Thank you. The the Organization of Black Law Executives. I want to thank you. And the thing is, let me tell you something, everybody. Because Sergeant Kennedy, I've known some everybody. I've known some wonderful people of every conceivable stripe. I don't want people who just look like me. That does not impress me. I want people who are humane and who want to love people. I think of Reverend James Reed, a white minister in Boston who left his wife and babies because he saw these men and women beaten on a bridge in Selma. And he went down there to stand with them and to march with him. And he went to dinner when he went down to Selma, and some white men beat him to death. To death. Viola Liuzzo, a white mother out of Detroit, saw the same scene. And she said to her husband, I've got to go. And she said, when she got down there, Sergeant Kennedy, she said, I don't know what I can do, but I want you all to use me. And God bless this woman. She was driving. She was driving the notables to the airport after the march. And there are a couple of pictures of her wearing her little coat, her little mommy coat in Selma, on the Selma to Montgomery March. And don't you know, as she was on her way to or from the airport, there was a black boy in the car with her, someone from Selma. These people suspect that it was the police. They bumped her off the road and they blew her brains out. She left behind a husband and 5 children. And then at that same time, we had some black folks who felt that Dr. King was a rabble rouser and he needed to shut up. More than 55% of black people disapproved of Dr. King when he was about to be killed. We helped to set the climate for his assassination. Don't be fooled by that. Not just white people. Oh, no. Dr. King could not get a pulpit in Chicago. That's why when Reverend Clay Evans gave him his pulpit, let him use it, and the mayor stopped him from building his church, and we watched the beams rust for 7 years. No. There's some good people everywhere, and there's some people who are not spiritually evolved everywhere. So I want some good people to step forward, okay? Some people, some people are spiritually evolved. Let me put it that way. I don't want to put judgment on it. I don't want to do that because we're all struggling. I might be evolved over here, and I might be crazy over there, and I am. So I'm putting myself on Front Street. But that having been said, no, it's not enough for you to look like me. I need some compassionate people. That's what we need, and we need to support that.
Yes, we need people who are like-minded and who's not afraid to say the right thing and step up and do the right thing. And like I said, not wait for others, but be willing to take the initiative to get things going. And trust me, there are people out there, and we are actively working on that now. So you're going to hear a lot more from us.
Well, I want you to know that you have a home on this show, because we need to talk about this. I got a lot of feedback today, and we need to talk about this some more, because we still didn't even get into more of, of what you need to do. Oh, my word. When you, because I think we need to continue to walk through how we need to interact with the police and what it is that we can do, Sergeant, to help you change the culture. Because, I mean, what we need to change the culture. And like you said, you need our help. We need to make that happen, everybody. We do. Do you have any closing thoughts, Sergeant Kennedy?
No, just keep the faith and just know that you do have like-minded people out here who are working on different levels to bring about transformative police reforms and just changes overall. You know, you may not hear about it, and we try to put as much as we can on social media, but we are out here. We are doing the work. Like I said, in my retirement, I'm even busier than I was when I was an active duty sergeant. So, like I said, we're not about to stop. We're starting to taste the benefits of what should have been available to all of us, you know, since time. So we're too close, and we're making progress, and we're going to keep moving forward.
Let me ask you this. DG Rondo, I just came across this. He wanted to ask you a question, Sergeant, about the militarization of the police. Have you seen the police militarized? What do you, I mean, because we're seeing, you know, the armed forces turn a lot of military gear over to police police departments all over the country. What do you make of that?
Well, in my opinion, I feel it is problematic because you already have a situation in law enforcement nationwide where, and I'm speaking in general, where there are a lot of police officers, instead of having the ideology of serving and protecting, a lot of them have the ideology of patrolling and keeping people in place. And I think as cities, states, other municipalities try to militarize their police departments, it only gives them more weapons to use against their community. So I'm totally against that. Why would you arm someone who do not like, or as the gentleman caller said earlier, is uncomfortable about the Black people in their community? So no, I'm totally against militarizing the police departments. They don't need to be given additional weapons to use against their citizens. Totally against it.
Well, thank you for that. And, you know, we're going to continue to follow that story, of those stories, because they're out here. But we've got to militarize this. DG, it's not just the police. We've militarized the whole country. I mean, I support a strong military, but they're not the only ones who serve the country. I thank teachers for their service. I thank garbage workers for their service. I thank everybody who's out here just trying to make the society work. I thank them for their service. We've elevated the military over everybody. I don't think that's smart. And I don't think it's healthy for a civilian-run government, a civilian-run society. Indeed, Dwight David Eisenhower, is the outgoing president, in his valedictory address said, "Don't do this. We need to be sensitive to the impact of the militarization of the American culture spiritually." He put that in there too. So think about that, everybody. Think about that. Think about that. Think about that. We need more love, not more guns. Although I support your right to have a gun. But I think we need more love, everybody. We need more love. Sergeant Kennedy, you're a jewel. I can't wait to have you back.
Oh, I am looking forward to. I cannot wait to return.
It'll be sooner than you think.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Oh, blessings to you. God bless you. But I'm going to connect you to my brother, and I'm going to connect you to C.K. Hoffler. I'm going to do that on my phone right now.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, God bless. And I love you all, everybody. Have a great weekend. Oh, wow. Linear, Bob, Sergeant Kennedy, did you go? All right. Well,
No, I'm still here, ma'am.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Well, Linear Bob said, what do we do with ex-military people trained to kill and made with PTSD from their service becoming police officers? I think those damaged people could be a problem. I agree. I think, what about that very quickly?
Well, think about this. So, while officers, they are on the job, and a lot of them are deployed, they may get deployed for 13 months or whatever. And I've had these conversations with people who conduct mandatory physical and psychological testing. One of my questions was, if an officer, a police officer who's been deployed, say for 13 months, develops PTSD, what does our department do to make sure that they are actually fit to come back to the department? Because what occurs is, if you've been away from your family for 13 months, before the military release you, they're going to ask you if you're having any problems. If you are having problems and you tell them, yes, I'm having problems, they're going to keep you longer until they can address those problems. So the average officer who's been deployed, they're going to tell them, I'm not having any problems, because they want to come back home to their families. And when they come back home, it's never addressed, because our departments can't force them into some type of mandatory, psychological to make sure they're okay, because that would be discrimination. So before I retired from the department, I was in discussions on, well, since officers had to come back to the academy for maybe, I think, 1 or 2 weeks just for like a retread, overall training, maybe they can offer something to anyone who has to go through retread, whether it's someone taking a leave of absence or whatever, because a lot of times, and I've spoken to officers who have told me when they came back from the deployment, they are not right. There's one officer that stands out in particular with me who have been divorced 2 times because, and he recognized, because he was able to articulate to me, I am not the same man that my wife married once I came back from deployment. And he understood that he never had it addressed. And so he was currently with this third young lady who he was planning on marrying, and I was trying to get him in some type of professional counseling program just so he would not repeat it. And I'm not sure if he ever followed up, but it was interesting that he was still able to articulate that he knew he was a different person based on his experience. But you have a lot of officers in that situation who is not going to reach out for assistance, because they're still worried about their jobs. They're worried about, especially in Chicago, they're worried about having their FOIA card revoked based on whatever type of mental illness they may have. Which means they go into a no pay status and you can't be the police. And I think back in either 2018 or 2019, there was a law passed in Illinois saying that the department can no longer use having a valid FOIA card as a condition of employment for the sole reason if someone decided to seek medical attention. But there were also exceptions, such as if that person was a danger to themselves or to others. So I understand you have a lot of officers on the department who have PTSD. Some know they have it. They have been officially diagnosed with it. And there's some who don't even realize what's going on because they have not taken the time to go to the doctor. And there are some who are actually taking medication to keep it under control. But like I said, you have officers on the department who are going through a lot of different things. And these are the same officers who are out there supposedly serving and protecting our the residents in our communities.
See, and that's where we have to have compassion for people who are in trouble. We don't have trouble. We don't have troubled people. We have people who have troubles. And so, When people come back from war after we sent Johnny and Johnny Made marching, they need help. We have too many homeless veterans out here. You know, we have too many homeless people. Too many people we allow to fall through the cracks, period. And we should not do that. So, you know what? There's a whole lot for us to talk about. And so that's why we're going to have you back, Sergeant Kennedy, because you are just great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and I look forward to returning back soon.
God bless you. So I'm going to connect you in CK now, and then you and my brother. Okay?
Sounds great.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Love you, everybody. I will see you. I wish I could do more. I wish you could do more, but I got to go now, everybody. Love you. Thank you, Devin. Great show, hon.